I was born and raised in South Texas, and like many Texans, I'm quite proud of it. I spent my early childhood years in Corpus Christi and grew up surrounded by the Hispanic culture, although we never really officially learned anything about it in school. When I turned 12, my mom moved me to a tiny town called Tilden. Our population was 400, and most neighbors were fellow ranchers. By nature of the smaller population, neighbors were like family. People got to know one another better, as well as their traditions and beliefs. And it was there that the Hispanic culture would become a huge part of who I was, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Once I completed high school, I moved back near the Corpus Christi area, and I met my husband within a few years. It was love at first sight. Soon we were married, and I was whisked away into a Navy way of life. But Texas always remained in my heart. And it was while I was being introduced to other cultures all over the United States through these years that I realized a good portion of my own culture was deeply rooted in Hispanic origins, and always would be. A few years ago, my husband detached from the Navy and landed a job here in New York. We began soaking up the culture instantly, and it was here that I understood the true meaning of diversity. It was also in New York that I learned the phrase, mosaic of cultures, which brings to mind a beautiful piece of art with patterns emerging and complementing one another. There is order and not chaos, and each color or culture in the metaphor is still individual and yet harmonizing. It was also here in New York that I began trying out the teaching role. I started as a director at a vacation Bible school camp. Shortly after, I got a job as a teacher's aide in a preschool. I loved it and had finally discovered what I wanted to be when I grew up. I decided to go back to school to make it official. But the Lone Star State of Texas, where everything is bigger, was still tugging at my heartstrings. My husband and I made the decision to go back after I complete my master's, to once again be home and immersed in that culture that had shaped and molded me, which also meant that I would teach students in the same culture, but with more language barriers than I grew up with. According to the NCELA, there are about 700,000 English language learners enrolled in Texas schools as of 2008. As a future teacher in Texas, I realize how important it is for me to understand the concepts of educating ELLs. It's also important to me that our curriculum represents this diversity and that all students have the chance to learn about and appreciate one another. We should give them the chance to embrace this ever-increasing diversity. Faced with a larger percentage of ELLs, some Texas colleges incorporate a heavier dose of ESL instruction in their general education programs now. A teacher starting their master's degree for elementary education will graduate better prepared to make sure that every child has the opportunity to learn, especially the English language learners. And with my roots and my newfound knowledge, I hope someday to make this difference too.